In recent years, the familiar label Made in China has been making way for a new contender. It doesn't simply mean a slight change of geographic direction in manufacturing, it means an epoch making transition when firms have to look beyond to overcome logistic risks and seek efficiency and affordability. Eyes are turning to Mexico and its assets. Some of the unique selling propositions of Mexico includes its closeness to the US, cheap labor than most developed countries, continuous advancement in manufacturing capabilities. Thus, Mexico is the ideal place to diversify production base. But what is it that is primal to this radical about-face? As varied as the reasons are interesting, it is possible to point out the reasons from the simple trade wars to the progress in technologies. The series continues where we take a journey analyzing why Mexico is poised to become the new factory of the world. An unobvious yet very important update took place in the harmonized tariff schedule of the United States in July 2018. This change sought to levy a 25% import tax on a variety of Chinese products, making it the start of the trade war between the USA and China. In return, the Trump administration did not take time to announce other tariffs, and the situation aggravated. These actions led to a stunning change of the trade flow, with the U.S. cutting imports from China by 5% rising while Japan's population decreased by 26, reduction of 3% in their trade with the U.S. Consequently, China could not compete anymore for the top trading partner of the U.S. and was replaced by Mexico and Canada. But the trade war was only a starting point. It is observed that due to the breakout of COVID-19 in Wuhan, China, and its transition to a pandemic, lengthened widely most of the supply chains. Some factories could not cope with the demand that arose, the transport routes became congested, and the American consumer was left deprived as he received consumer goods that took so much time to be brought into the country. Supply chains have recovered, although not significantly, by the end of 2022. However, the international trade networks are still weak, since they
Now
have
to a
already
surprise
received
incursion
the
into
lifetime
Russia
hit,
as Ukrainian troops continue to push
exemplified by the
deeper
more
into the
recent
Kursk
disruption
region with
caused
those
by the Russian
operations
attack
now
on
in their
Ukraine.
second week.
In the past, China benefited from cheap labor as a form of comparative advantage for manufacturing firms. However, change in the Chinese economy has seen wages rise, which in effect led to rise in manufacturing cost. This change made many foreign companies search for other places where production can be made at cheaper and lower costs. On the other hand, China had leveraged its wealth to build a robust domestic consumption market anchored on huge e-commerce firms, technology conglomerates, and global brands including TikTok. However, there was one problem associated with these successes. Most of China's trade with the U.S. consisted of physical goods. The range and nature of the supply line that has more concentration on shipping the products from China to U.S. increased the chances of the supply chain to be affected. Further on the geopolitical front, tensions between the U.S. and China, especially over Taiwan, pointed to a world heading towards something less globalized than before 1990. In this evolving landscape, companies faced two choices: either prop up the supply chain buffers, adding more cost, or minimize risk with make near the markets. So they either had to add more buffers to the global supply chain, which cost more, or they could reduce the risk by moving manufacturing near the markets. The latter option is more popular nowadays, and Mexico becomes one of the most attractive destinations for manufacturers willing to reduce their expenses and be close to the Americas market. Mexico is not without its problems, but it is the only candidate country that is adjacent to the United States. Hence, while its infrastructure and doing business index rank lower than China-Mexico's geographical positioning, offer a better option to firms avoiding the Trans-Pacific theater. Some of the southern parts of the country, especially the regions near the World Trade International Bridge, have also recorded increased manufacturing action, if only for the need to embrace faster and more flexible manufacturing strategies. The most significant project is the Hofusen Industrial Park, developed through the synergy of Chinese and Mexican investors and located near Salinas, Victoria. The park occupies 200 acres of land. This park is established to lure manufacturers from China, and its establishment also symbolizes the change in the focus from China to Mexico due to various risks and optimization of the supply chain. Global trade has been particularly affected by the US-China trade war and the disruption occasioned by the COVID-19 and the Ukraine crisis. The shifting of gears of the companies in terms of supply chain strategies, Mexico is coming up in the breeding as much more accessible and flexible supply than the conventional Chinese manufacturing market. Since its entry into the doors of the Mexican manufacturing industry, China is transforming new paradigms of the international economy. Drawing its bet, Mexico is actively luring more than 100 Chinese manufacturers to set up factories within a fenced industrial city. The promise of Mexico is hard to refute, even though the buildings are not yet finished. Lenovo, for instance, has been assembling products for a little over a decade now at Juarez, just outside Monterrey. Of the 44 Asian companies that started new production sites in Mexico in 2022, 9 out of the 10 biggest firms are from China. This rise in Chinese investment is actually part of a trend brought by conditions in Mexico that are simply too good to turn your back on. The birth of Mexico as a manufacturing hub, therefore, has a background. In the years preceding the maquiladora system, the country has made a reputation out of becoming a favored investment for foreign entities. It offered inexpensive and a tax-friendly structure to factories in an effort to decrease the rate of unemployment and to appeal to international investors. The enhanced establishment of factories was boosted by the formation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, which saw a flock of big car manufacturers such as KIA, Toyota, and Ford, among others. With the appearance of such enterprises as Lego, Samsung, and 3M, Mexico has become one of the most vital industrial movers. It was established that by the year 2012, Mexico had more than 5,000 maquiladoras, and most of these companies were situated in the northern part of the country, and the companies provided more than 2 million employees. They provided the jobs these companies needed and, at the same time, refuted the belief that Mexico was too dangerous for business. The value proposition for manufacturing in Mexico has not changed, and still the case being existing industrial infrastructure, higher wages compared to Asia, but with easy access to the U.S. and tariff-free exports. Moreover,
morning, shocking new details have emerged in the investigation into the murder of 2 Australian brothers in Mexico.
For the protection of their ideas and innovations than it can be in other countries of the developing world, and the political situation gets more stable than in other developing countries. However, Mexico has yet to tap on its utmost potential as a manufacturing country. This is one because its federal government has not also focused on the enhancement of the industrial sector of Mexico. Same as it was with Nuevo León, other states have also made an opportunity to develop their manufacturing industries, and thus, Mexico has had its growth defined by lack of synergy. Even though it is only the 7th most populous state, Nuevo León is 3rd in gross domestic product. It is recognized as one of the safest states. But to realize this potential, much more attention and encouragement from both the governments of Mexico and USA is needed so that this important industry should not be overlooked.